Just because Lydia stepped out of City Hall with her head held high and skin as dark as night, Officer Brent Halverson immediately cut through the crowd, no warrant, no questions, demanding her papers like she was already guilty. Without a flicker of hesitation, without a shred of humanity, he swung his fist straight at her face. But here's what he didn't know. Lydia wasn't just anyone. She was a senior advisor to the Department of Justice. Her husband? An FBI agent. So what happens when a man thinks he can crush others simply because he expects silence? Stick with me, you'll see. Lydia Monroe descended the cold stone steps of City Hall with a calm that wasn't just about power, it was about purpose. The red seal on her Department of Justice folder gleamed in the midday sun. She wore a tailored black suit that sat perfectly on her shoulders. Her heels clicked softly on the granite plaza, steady and measured, like the beat of someone walking into a war zone prepared for battle. Across the square, Brent Halverson stood half in shadow, beneath an aging lamppost, uniform on, but conscience off. His sunglasses caught the sun, reflecting it back like two interrogation lights. His eyes narrowed, fixed on Lydia, his prey. She didn't glance his way. She didn't need to. Her steps were mechanical, deliberate. 1, 2, steady as a heartbeat. No hesitation. No fear. Halverson pressed his radio mic and whispered, "Unfit civilian approaching admin zone." Black, alone, arrogant. His voice was cold like a scalpel slicing through the air, more battlefield command than municipal radio chatter. No question. No request. Just judgment. As Lydia neared the center of the plaza, Halverson stepped out from the shade, blocking her path. His stance was rigid, jaw set, the kind of man who had long mistaken his badge for a crown. She stopped, not abruptly, but as if her momentum had never depended on moving forward. Her eyes met his without blinking, arms relaxed. No greeting, no introduction. Just one word, identification. No urgency, only challenge, like he was tossing a dart at someone already sentenced. Lydia stood tall. Her right hand gripped the folder, left arm calm at her side. She didn't reach into a pocket. She didn't flinch. Halverson leaned forward, just enough to mark territory, nostrils flaring like a wolf who thought it on the night. His eyes flicked to the DOJ seal on her folder, then ignored it, as if blinded by willful prejudice. His lips curled into a sneer, but Lydia's silence wasn't protest, it was calculated stillness, like bulletproof glass between them. She didn't hand over ID. Not yet. Not because she couldn't, but because she refused to dignify his demand with a response. Halverson shifted, fingers twitching near his belt, a silent threat, a show of power. Around them, the city carried on. A woman passed by with her child nearby, glancing briefly, but moving on. People pretended not to see, pretending not to hear. The fountain gurgled behind them, indifferent. The plaza held its breath. Then Lydia's voice cut through, calm, steady. "Is there a problem, officer?" No smile. No edge. Just a clean question that turned the moment on its head. Halverson stiffened, repeating louder, "I asked for your identification." His voice was clipped, no justification offered, just demand. Lydia still didn't move. The invisible lines of power were shifting. The plaza was a courtroom now. Halverson had scripted this before she ever arrived. She was trouble, prejudged by nothing more than her skin, her posture. Facts were irrelevant. The badge on his chest gleamed, but it didn't shine with justice. It glinted like cold brass on a weapon, kept too clean a question. Lydia's stillness was her weapon. She neither argued nor explained, she simply existed, unyielding, refusing to be diminished. Halverson stepped closer, boots thudding like a slow drumbeat of intimidation. "You hear me?" he sneered. Lydia's left eyebrow flicked up a subtle but sharp objection. She pulled out her wallet, black and embossed, showing the DOJ seal, but didn't offer it. Just held it visible, deliberate, draining the drama from the scene. Halverson's jaw tensed. His eyes scanned the ID, flicking back to hers, a flicker of something like recognition or retreat flashing behind his gaze. Then she put the wallet away and resumed walking. 2 steps forward, steady as before. No haste, no fear, just inevitability. Halverson didn't stop her, didn't call backup. He stood frozen, stuck in a moment he thought he controlled, now slipping through his fingers like water. Lydia's heels tapped a rhythm louder than any shout. But Halverson wasn't done. His voice snapped louder, sharper. Hey, not duty, not authority. A man cornered, desperate for dominance. One step forward, hand hovering near his holster, a silent promise that violence was always an option. But Lydia didn't retreat. Instead, she leaned slightly right, not surrendering, but just enough to maintain distance between his weapon and her ribs, redrawing boundaries he tried to erase. "What's the matter?" he sneered, venom dripping from every word. "Cat got your mouth, counselor? Or are you trying to remember which page in your DOJ rulebook you forgot to memorize?" The insult wasn't just about her credentials, it was about her presence, her skin, her calm. She met his gaze with patience born of battles far bigger than his. She said nothing, and that silence more than any outburst shook him. Halverson leaned closer, breath hot with arrogance. "I know your type," he hissed. "Talk like a lawyer, but act like rules don't apply to you. Hate to break it to you, but out here, nobody gives a damn about your fancy files, especially when you got a face like that." The insult cracked the air like lightning, but Lydia stood immovable, folder steady, spine like carved stone. Behind them, a man in a ball cap lifted his phone, eyes locked on the scene. Halverson jabbed a finger, warning, "Put that away before I confiscate it." Last warning. But the man kept recording, silent defiance sparking Halverson's fury. Lydia's voice cut low, deliberate, almost intimate, but with the weight of a verdict. "How long do you think you'll still be wearing that uniform?" Not a question, but a prophecy. Halverson's face twitched, sweat beading beneath his collar. His hand hovered near his holster, hesitation creeping in. No answer came. She didn't wait for a reply, her eyes steel behind glass, unyielding, as the plaza turned courtroom. Halverson tried to recover, louder now, invoking protocol, but the lie reeked of desperation. Lydia let it rot in the air, unacknowledged, unworthy. The tension thickened, each second layering ice around absurdity, one man's ego barking threats, one woman's certainty refusing to bow. Noise couldn't erase the image settling in everyone's mind. A uniform wielded as a weapon, a calm woman unmoved, witnesses silent but present. Lydia adjusted her folder, a small gesture speaking volumes. She wasn't breaking. She wasn't leaving. And she certainly wasn't afraid. Halverson's eyes flicked toward the phone again, his assumed power now hanging by a thread. She gave him one line enough. She wasn't here to argue or teach, just to stand, present, unmoved. That was what he couldn't process. He was used to noise, to panic, to broken voices. She gave none of it. Just space and a look that measured worth without a shred of respect. Silence throbbed between them, not empty, but full of judgment and witnesses who would later say they saw a woman stand still while a man tried to erase her. Halverson's words stumbled out, loaded, but empty. The moment had changed, and every breath he wasted only made his failure more obvious. Lydia shifted, anchoring herself, eyes locked on his with quiet violence. He wasn't waiting for permission. She wasn't explaining. She was simply there, unbothered, unapologetic. And for all his fury, his tightening veins, his pulse screaming behind his eyes, he couldn't close the distance between who he was and who he thought he'd be. Because the truth was, he needed her to flinch, to shout, to give him something to hold on to. But she didn't. Not 1 inch. Not one excuse. Just the unbearable mirror of composure. His lips curled like scorched paper, then the dam broke. "You think you're better than a cop?" he spat, venom dripping. "You think those fancy files will save your smug face?" His hand shot up, finger aimed like a weapon inches from her cheek. The shake in his arm wasn't strength, it was the burn of desperate need for control. But Lydia didn't blink, didn't flinch. The finger hovered, but she stood unbothered, like stone sculpted for this moment. "I don't need saving," she said, voice firm, exact, low enough to still the wind. "I just don't need to be assaulted in daylight." No emphasis, no tremble, Just pure distilled truth. That sentence cut through the tension like a match dropped in dry grass. The crowd began to gather. First one, then three, then dozens. Phones emerged, lenses raised silently, capturing every crack before combustion. Halverson heard the sound of witnesses and audience he hadn't invited and could no longer ignore. "Try me," he barked, voice raw with impotence. His shoulder dropped back, foot anchored, and with reckless speed swung his fist clenched tight with years of unchecked power and entitlement slicing through the space toward Lydia's face. The punch wasn't a bluff. It was real, fast, brutal, aimed with precision. The plaza held its breath. Gasps didn't form. No screams. No running. The world narrowed, one fist in flight, one woman unmoved. She didn't dodge, didn't lean back, didn't brace or raise a hand. She just stood, the same gang's length away she'd kept since he first stepped too close. Her eyes locked on his steady, still. The distance vanished in a blur of velocity and rage, but the punch didn't land. It hung suspended, a breath from a line crossed and erased in the same instant. That moment didn't crack with violence, it cracked with lost restraint, thunderclap of a man revealing his hand and finding it shaking. Halverson's balance shifted, momentum dragging him forward, shoulders exposed, intentions caught on 1,000 recording devices. Behind them, murmurs swelled like a storm tiptoeing across the pavement, but no one moved. No one intervened. They just watched, stunned witnesses to a uniform unraveling. Lydia didn't move. Her posture didn't waver. Her folder remained intact. Her jaw relaxed, and those damn eyes resting on him like a surgeon studying something malignant. She didn't need to respond. The scene had spoken. Halverson, breathing hard, eyes flickering from her cheek to the phones and crowd, realized too late. Silence could be louder than any siren. Fury masked and enforcement shattered into raw panic. He stepped forward, hand near holster, not to de-escalate, but to bait a visual whisper that violence was ready. Lydia leaned slightly, right again, redrawing boundaries. "What's the matter?" he sneered. "Cat got your mouth?" His words cut deeper than just a challenge. They cut her presence, her skin, her calm. She said nothing, not yet. That silence unsettled him more than any outburst. His breath hissed with disdain. "I know your type. You talk like a lawyer, but think rules don't apply to you. Hate to break it, nobody cares about your fancy files, especially with a face like that." Her silence was impenetrable, her arms steady, spine unbreakable. Behind them, a man raised his phone, unblinking, capturing the moment. Halverson barked at him to put it away, last warning. The man held firm, and that quiet defiance sparked the man's anger anew. Lydia's voice came again, low, clear, a verdict. "How long do you think you'll still be wearing that uniform?" Not a question, a prophecy. Halverson twitched, sweat gathering. He didn't answer. She didn't wait for him, eyes steel behind glass. The plaza transformed into a courtroom where silence was louder than any shout. Halverson tried to invoke protocol, but the lie smelled of desperation. Lydia let it rot in the space between them, unacknowledged, unworthy. The tension crystallized, ice forming around absurdity. One officer bristled with ego, barking threats in a silence. One woman, armed with certainty, refused to cower. No noise could erase the image that had settled in every memory: a man wielding a badge like a weapon, and a woman standing her ground. That was the moment Lydia Monroe lit a fire that would blaze beyond City Hall, beyond the plaza, beyond any punch thrown or threat barked. The story wasn't about a failed cop anymore. It was about power, silence, and the strength it takes to stand unmoved in the face of it all. Now I want to hear from you. When someone in power abuses their role, what's the most effective way to push back? Is it silence, confrontation, or something else? Share your thoughts below, because stories like this aren't just about what happens on the street. They're about what we choose to see, hear, and say next.